Well, so much for easing into the news cycle after the holidays. I'm Marcy Markusa. This is Manitoba, our daily podcast that is built around the news in Manitoba that you need to know in 20 minutes or less and not wasting your time. And also, of course, comes off the morning show, which I host. The morning show director is Cory. He's with us on the pod today. Thought it was going to be quiet today.
Yeah, and then it got real newsy real fast.
Yeah. Like about mid-show?
Mid-show, all of a sudden we start to kind of hear from other sources, things like that the Prime Minister is going to announce that he's going to resign as Liberal leader.
And so CBC has confirmed that, yes, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is out as Liberal leader. On the podcast today, what comes next? So there's a lot of questions around that. When's the last time we had prorogation in this country? What does that even mean? Does this immediately trigger an election, or are we still going to the polls later this year? Those questions are explored in the first item we have up for you on This is Manitoba on the podcast today. So Robert Fife is the Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail, and they first broke the story that sources said that Trudeau was going to resign as Liberal leader and ultimately as Prime Minister, of course, then. He spoke with the CBC's Ramraajh Sharvendiran.
And so what options lie ahead for him?
Well, that's the real issue here and we really don't know. There are two options, or three actually. One is that he could just say, I'm leaving, and the caucus could make a recommendation for an interim leader, which the national executive of the Liberal Party would then probably accept. And but there's drawbacks on that, because there has never been a situation where a sitting prime minister has walked away, resigned and just walked away without. Usually what happens is they hold a leadership convention and they remain in power until a new leader is selected and they move on. So the second option is clearly holding a leadership contest, but normally that takes about 4 to 5 months, and they really don't have the timetable to do that. It has to be much shorter leadership contest, because you'd have to prorogue Parliament to begin with, and there's another issue. There is a supply vote that has to take place by March 28th to basically fund the government, and so that would run into big problems as well. So really, we have to figure out a wait and see. If he does say he's going to step down, we'll have to then see what the Liberal Party's national executive is going to do in terms of whether it's an interim leader or whether they're going to have a leadership contest, but it'll have to be a shortened one for obvious reasons, because the government could fall at any time.
Now, when it comes to the possible prorogation of Parliament, what exactly needs to be considered there for the party and for the Governor General?
Well, I think the Governor General might allow him to prorogue Parliament and to have for a few months. In any case, she may allow him to do that. Some people argue that he shouldn't be allowed to do that. Certainly, the opposition parties or the Conservatives will argue that he has lost the confidence of the House already, and that he shouldn't be allowed to prorogue Parliament. He should face Parliament and see whether the Liberal government can survive. So there is a debate about that, but I think most parliamentary experts think that if he went to the Governor General, she would probably grant it. But again, there is a division of opinion on that.
And so if he does resign as leader, who's likely in the running to replace him right now?
Well, the Finance Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, pretty widely respected by the Liberal caucus, and he's a very good communicator. Clearly, Chrystia Freeland, the former Finance Minister, I think she will throw her hat into the ring as well. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is certainly one that people are looking at. The Innovation Minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne, is also likely to be a candidate. And two outsiders, former BC Premier Christy Clark and former central banker Mark Carney. Those are all the names that are being bandied about, and I expect most of them, if there is a leadership convention, most of them will probably seek it.
That's Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail, and he was in conversation there with the CBC's Ramraajh Sharvendiran. Well, next on the podcast, let's talk about things that are developing still politically, but right here in Manitoba. Both the city and the province have both made big promises for 2025. They've said that addressing homelessness is their top priority, but there's some specifics here because advocates have long said that you need to help someone stay housed. And part of the key to that is wraparound supports. Premier Wab Kinew, in fact, even said specifically that housing with supports is part of his government's plan for 2025. But it's still unclear how and when all of that's going to roll out, these plans we're hearing about. What is clear, though, is there are some organizations in the city of Winnipeg that are already really doing a lot of work with wraparound support. One of them is the West Central Women's Resource Centre in the city, and they have housing and outreach programs. CBC reporter Rosanna Hempel had a chance to meet with the organization and shadow some of the workers, and she has a special report for us. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you actually were tagging along with the outreach van that, to start with, visits encampments in the city. What was it like?
Well, the thing that struck me the most was how much the outreach workers care about their jobs and how well that they knew their clients. So a camera person and I got to do a ride along with West Central's outreach van last month. And so they drive from encampment to encampment, sometimes bus shelters, the crisis response center, hospitals. They bring food, harm reduction supplies, and, warm clothes. It is winter. And on the evening shift that we were with them, they had hot coffee, chicken noodle soup, just completely packed in the van.
And there's also some thermal. You guys have coffee?
So that's Ren Armstrong and Megan Michelle that we heard there. They're the only two outreach workers that West Central has right now. So they took us around the Centennial neighborhood first, then to Point Douglas. They knew which corners and parks had encampments, and for the most part, who lived there. So both Ren and Megan, they announced themselves when they get there. And they told us that once they get to know someone, they'll see if they can help them find housing. Here's outreach team lead Ren Armstrong explaining how long their to-do list can be.
If we're starting from square one, some people have no ID. Some people don't have a birth certificate or a Manitoba health card. So we start there. And then once we get that stuff started, then we can fill out a Manitoba housing application or call some of the landlords on our rental listings and see if there's any places that they want to go look at there.
So as you heard there, they have a few things to get done before they can help someone find that place to live indoors. And they told us that all these tasks come with their own set of challenges. So for example, they might have to accompany and drive someone to an office that, in person that has set business hours. And it can be hard to reach people in encampments. Some of them don't have phones. Sometimes the tents are dismantled or moved. And they told us it takes a lot of coordination and effort for someone to finally get that place to live.
So once someone does, who's experiencing homelessness, does find that home indoors, once that happens, how much support do they need, I guess, is a way to frame that? How does West Central keep supporting them?
So it really depends how much help they need and whether they qualify for West Central's 2 housing programs. So the organization serves women and gender diverse people. And from what the outreach workers told me, they themselves can continue to help someone once they have homes. As for the 2 housing programs, there's one for lower acuity clients and then one for clients who do need those more check-ins or overall more help. The first one is mostly for people who already have homes, but they might have a conflict with their landlord, or they may be facing eviction, or for some other reason the home they have now is not appropriate, and they'll help them find a different home. So the second housing program is a lot more involved. Caseworkers get assigned up to 18 clients experiencing homelessness. And I got to meet Janice Ducharme, who's one of the caseworkers for this program. And she told me she can arrange financial benefits for them and find them an apartment. Sometimes that's in Manitoba housing, but most of the time it is in the private rental market. So once they've helped a client move in, she'll stay in touch, keep helping them. That could be a whole range of things, everything from driving them to appointments, like addictions treatment. It could be helping them understand how to be a good tenant and meeting with landlords. So here's Janice explaining how that support helps her clients.
I know a few of my participants would be still probably doing the same thing, staying in the shelter, coming to resource centers like us, not getting anywhere basically. not being able to get to the step that they want to get to. We help it and we ease it a little bit to make this transition for them into housing or onto EIA. And we make it a little easier for them. And, instead of them having to do it for themselves, they have someone to be there behind them or beside them.
Now, these caseworkers at West Central also do home visits then, and you were also invited and allowed to tag along on one of those. And how did that go?
Yeah, so we got to be there when Janice visited one of her clients. Her name is Annie Charbonneau, and she agreed to talk to us. Annie told us that she'd lived in shelters and on the street for about 2 years until this past spring. On the day that we visited, Janice was dropping off bus tickets and a food hamper. And so we hear that when people are housed in the private rental market, any income assistance or other benefits that they have, all that usually goes towards rent. So they have trouble paying for food. So Janice was there helping Annie stock up on that. And as for the bus tickets, Annie told us that it'll help her get to some job interviews.
Got a line on a job. I'm volunteering at 190 Desirelli Street. Yeah. So I'm really trying to get a foot up, just to go and say, yes, I did it.
So Annie really told us that those check-ins that Janice is doing are really helping her get back on track and where she wants to be.
I need to go back to a number that you mentioned because I don't know if listeners this stuck out to them, but you said caseworkers like Janice Ducharme work with up to 18 clients experiencing homelessness. Does she have enough time to visit everyone in a week?
She really does her best to, but her caseload doesn't always allow it. She told us that she does have to miss some appointments or meetings with landlords due to scheduling. And that is why West Central's executive director, Lori English, says that those caseloads should be more like 10 to 12 people. So caseworkers do have enough time to help everyone and make sure they stay in their housing. And, she said that sometimes they have to close the intake because they can't take on any more people. So this is something that Lori English wants the province to keep in mind when it's, looking at getting people from bus shelters and encampments to move into homes indoors.
Housing with supports is the critical piece. There are some folks who need that support 24/7, but in most cases, I think as long as there's someone there most days and most of the time, that's a workable model.
And, it's not just the frontline positions that she wants to see funded. It's also social housing. So that includes Manitoba Housing, because the organization often struggles to find apartments in the private rental market that are affordable enough for clients and where landlords will agree to let a person experiencing homelessness live. So Premier Wab Kinew, we did a recent interview with him, my colleague Ian Fraze. So Kinew did say that his government has been building up the affordable and Manitoba housing stock.
So I think we're at a point now, we're in the first few months of 2025. Those units are going to come online, and then we're going to be able to go out into the community and start housing people and adding the supports that they need to be more successful.
We don't know yet how many suites that's going to be or how the supports will work after people move into those units. But West Central hopes that the community is consulted and that there is more funding for those frontline positions and social housing.
What would that mean if there is more funding for the positions and housing for West Central outreach for the team that you met with and the people we heard from?
Well, it could possibly mean that they'd have more of those outreach workers trying to help people get from encampments to homes. Right now, they are a 2-person team, and there are other outreach vans in the city, like Downtown Community Safety Partnership. Main Street Project also has some. But overall, outreach worker Megan Michelle says that the amount of work that they have to do is just overwhelming.
We've had to say goodbye to some of our participants because the barriers that we were hitting, we weren't knocking them down quick enough. And that's the hardest part of the job.
So she really hopes that they can knock down those roadblocks if help comes soon.
It's going to be a critical year for all of us, I think, obviously. All right, thank you very much, Rosanna, for coming in.
You're welcome.
That's the CBC's Rosanna Hempel. Well, Cory, we made it to the end of the first podcast of 2025.
Woot, 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 woot.
Are you going to sing us out? I heard when you filled in for me over the holidays, you were singing.
I do. I do only sing as Disney princesses, though, in Frozen.
That's it?
That's it. That's my kind of niche.
You're only Elsa?
Yeah, Elsa, Anna, I can do a little Jasmine from Aladdin if you need.
And are we going to get that on the pod today?
You know what? Maybe if we get a few likes and comments, I'll sing.
Wow. Okay, we are actually challenging people.
I'll
now.
need 10 5-star reviews, and this guy will give you as much Elsa on it as you want.
We'll leave the podcast there today, I think. This is Manitoba. Don't forget to like and share.